The pediatric clinic smelled faintly of antiseptic and dusted crayons, too clean, too cheerful. A fish tank burbled in the corner, its fluorescent light casting shimmering waves on the plastic seaweed. Children's laughter echoed faintly. Down the hallway, but in the waiting room, Ava sat silently, bent over herself like a folding chair, her arms wrapped around her stomach as though holding something inside. She winced as another cramp rippled through her body. Her sweatshirt sleeves were tugged over her hands, her fingers tightening with every wave of pain. Beside her, Henry adjusted his coat and glanced at his watch for the third time. "Try to sit up straight." "Sweetheart," he said gently, too gently. Ava straightened, robotically, her back still curled like a wilted leaf. She said nothing. Dr. Mira glanced through the small clinic window, watching them from the hallway. The receptionist had already briefed her, 13-year-old girl. Ongoing stomach pain, no clear reason, acting withdrawn. The father's demeanor had been flagged polite, but something off. Mira took a breath and stepped into the room. "Ava," she called with a smile. "You're up." Ava flinched, as though her name had startled her. Henry rose with her, resting a hand firmly on her back. "She's been in terrible pain since yesterday," he said before Myra could speak. "Won't eat, can barely walk. It's not like her." "I'm sorry to hear that," Myra replied. Evenly. "Let's have a look, shall we? Ava, come with me." Henry began walking with them. "Just Ava for the exam," Mira said gently. "You're welcome to wait right here." A long silence. Henry's eyes flicked between Ava and Mira. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "She's shy around strangers, that's perfectly okay. But the exam room's small. I'll come get you if needed." Ava glanced up, just for a moment. A flash of something in her eyes. Was it fear? Desperation? Mira made a mental note and led her down the hallway. The exam room was cold. Mira draped a light blanket across Ava's lap and began her initial checks: pulse, blood pressure. Eyes. Ava remained silent, lips pressed tight. "You can talk to me," Myra said softly. "You're safe here." Ava looked at her, just looked, then she closed her eyes. When Mira asked where it hurt, Ava pointed faintly to her lower abdomen. Mira's touch was light but careful. No obvious bruising, but the area was tense. "How long has it been hurting?" A shrug. "Does it feel like cramps? Or a sharp pain?" Another shrug. Myra sat back on her stool. The girl was pale. Her skin had that hollowed-out look, like something had been draining the color from her slowly over time. "I'm going to order a quick abdominal ultrasound," Myra said. "Just to make sure everything looks okay inside. Nothing to worry about." Ava nodded. One slow, obedient movement, the machine hummed as Mira rolled it in herself. She preferred not to let technicians handle cases like this when something didn't feel right. She applied the gel, cold against the girl's skin, and moved the wand over Ava's stomach. For a moment, nothing. Shadows and curves, and then a flicker dot. Something moved. Mira's hand stilled. She adjusted the angle. Another flicker, a fluttering shape. Her heart stopped. No, this couldn't be. She zoomed in. Clarity, movement, a tiny heartbeat. Mira stared at the monitor. The screen didn't lie. Ava was pregnant. She had to keep her voice even. The girl couldn't see the screen. Myra made sure of that, but she sensed the tension. Ava's hands gripped the edge of the table, her breathing shallow. "Everything's okay," Mira lied gently. "I just need to talk to your father for a moment, then we'll chat more, all right?" Ava nodded. Barely. Myra stepped out into the hallway. Her pulse thundered in her ears. She found Henry still sitting, flipping through a National Geographic. With feigned patience, "Henry," she said, "can I speak with you for a moment?" He stood up too fast. "Is she okay?" "I'd like to ask you to wait outside for a few minutes longer," Mira said calmly. "I need to speak with Ava alone." "I thought you were examining her already." "I was. But she needs some privacy now." Henry frowned. His smile faded. "She's 13. You don't need her consent. I'm her guardian, I understand. But it's clinic policy, and I need her to be comfortable." Something dark flickered in Henry's eyes. A calculation. Then, with a small forced chuckle, he stepped back. Sure, you're the doctor. He walked to the lobby slowly, like he was leaving something behind he didn't want to. Back in the room, Mira sat beside Ava. I need to ask you something important, she said gently. Ava nodded. You're pregnant. Ava's face didn't change, not even a blink. But her hands clenched the blanket. Did you know? A slow shake of the head. Do you know who the father is? Silence. Then, he said, it would be our secret. Mira didn't breathe for several seconds. Ava, was it someone in your family? Ava didn't answer. Her lip quivered. She looked away. Myra stood and stepped outside again. She motioned for the nurse. Call CPS and notify the sheriff's office. Quietly. The nurse's eyes widened but nodded. Myra returned to Ava's side, placing a hand over hers. You're not alone, she whispered. Outside, Henry leaned against the vending machine, staring straight at the exam room door. He didn't blink, he was already planning something. Dr. Mira stood outside the exam room, her hand still cold from the ultrasound gel. She could feel her heart beating beneath her coat. Too fast, too loud. Inside, Ava was quiet again, her small form trembling under the paper blanket. The words Ava had whispered haunted Myra. He said it would be our secret. Now Myra had confirmation. The flickering movement, the unmistakable rhythm of life. Ava was pregnant. There was no doubt. Across the hallway, Henry leaned casually against the vending machine, hands in his pockets, his jacket half-zipped. He looked up when Myra approached, his mouth curling into that same polite smile. Is she all right? He asked, voice smooth, measured. I'd like to continue the exam privately, Myra said, keeping her tone steady. Ava needs a bit more time without anyone else in the room. It's clinic protocol. Henry didn't move. She's 13, he said, almost kindly. I'm her legal guardian. There's no reason I can't be there. Mira met his gaze. And there's no reason for concern if you wait outside. His eyes narrowed just slightly. The mask didn't crack, but Myra saw something behind it now. Not worry, not confusion, control, threat. I think I'll stay, Henry said. His tone almost apologetic. I'm afraid I must insist, Mira replied. We're conducting a sensitive procedure. It's policy. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stepped closer, subtly, like a man who wanted to look calm but was used to people backing away. What are you doing in there? He asked. Mira didn't blink. A routine scan. He tilted his head. Then why the sudden privacy? She's a patient, Mira said, and she asked to speak with me alone. Her comfort matters here. Henry's smile vanished. A long, taut silence settled between them. From the hallway, the murmur of nurses faded to nothing. The air turned heavy. Dr. Henry said finally, voice clipped. I don't think you understand. Mira raised her hand gently, palm open toward the nurse's station. Security, please. The words echoed louder than she expected. Henry's eyes went ice-cold. He didn't speak, he just stared. Then, slowly, he stepped back, running a hand through his graying hair. I'll be outside, he said tightly. Back in the exam room, Ava hadn't moved. It's okay, Mira whispered. He's not coming back in. Ava's breathing eased. Just a little, but her hands were still fisted in the blanket. Myra returned to the monitor. She adjusted the wand, carefully avoiding Ava's direct view of the screen. The image reappeared. The curled form, tiny but real, fluttering in the womb. The girl was too far along for this to have just happened. Mira estimated at least 5 months. Her stomach had barely shown. No wonder it was missed, but the implications. Mira's stomach churned. She printed the image and turned off the screen. Do you want to talk about anything else? Mira asked gently. Ava was silent. I'm not here to judge you. A pause, then a whisper. Am I going to get in trouble? No, Mira said, kneeling beside her, but someone else might. Ava closed her eyes. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. At the front of the clinic, security had arrived. Henry was seated stiffly in a chair, his foot tapping rapidly, hands clenched in his lap. One of the guards leaned on the counter, trying to look casual. "Is this really necessary?" Henry asked the nurse. "My daughter is unwell, and you're treating me like a criminal." The nurse said nothing. Then Henry stood up. "I'm going to check on her." The guard moved. "Sir, we've been asked to wait." Henry's nostrils flared. "I'm her father." The second guard, broader and more direct, stepped in. "And we're under direction from the physician. Please take your seat." Mira emerged. Just then, holding a clipboard, "She'll be moved to a private room until Child Protective Services arrives." Mira announced. A voice, though calm, had steel beneath it. Henry's face turned red. "You don't get to do that without my consent." "I do," Mira said, her voice sharp now. "She is under medical protection due to immediate risk. You'll wait here until the authorities arrive." Henry stepped forward. "This is a mistake. She's 13, Mira snapped. "And pregnant? It's not a mistake. It's a crime." The silence that followed cracked something open. The nurse covered her mouth. The first guard looked at Henry with different eyes now. Henry's mask slipped just for a second. He looked around, as if calculating the exits. Then he smiled again. "You'll be hearing from my lawyer." "You'll be hearing from the sheriff," Mira replied, already turning away. Ava was being transferred into a quieter recovery room with a couch and a closed door. Mira walked alongside her, careful not to touch her without permission. Ava looked around, unsure. "Will he come in?" she asked, barely audible. "No," Mira said. "He can't, not anymore." Ava's eyes filled with tears, but she wiped them fast. "He'll be mad. He won't be near you," Mira said firmly. "You're safe here." Outside, Henry sat motionless again in the waiting room. He no longer looked polite. His fingers tapped against the chair, over and over. The vending machine hummed beside him. A nurse whispered something into the phone at the reception desk. "Sheriff's on the way." She mouthed to Myra. Time slowed. The sun outside had started to dip, orange bleeding into the windows. Myra sat at her desk, reviewing the scan printout. Her hands trembled slightly, but she steadied them. The screen, the fluttering movement. Something was living inside Ava. But what had died in her to make her stare with such hollow calm? The door creaked open. It was the receptionist. "He's gone." "What, Henry?" she said. "He slipped out when we were changing shifts. He's not in the lobby." Myra stood up so fast her chair slammed into the wall. "Lock the clinic," she said. "Right now." The receptionist ran. Mira turned back toward the hallway where Ava rested. Henry was out there now, and he was planning his next move. The door clicked shut, and the lock slid into place with a soft final sound. Outside, the receptionist raced to call the sheriff again, her voice low and urgent. Inside the small recovery room, the silence between Dr. Mira and Ava hung like frost on glass thin. Quiet, ready to crack, Mira sat in the corner chair, notebook in her lap, trying not to stare too hard. Ava was curled up on the exam table, knees pulled to her chest beneath a thin blanket. Her sweatshirt was bunched at her waist, and the soft, sticky residue from the ultrasound gel was drying on her pale skin. She hadn't spoken since being moved here, not even when offered juice or a warmer blanket. Mira knew the weight of silence. It wasn't just quiet. It was survival. "You're safe here," Mira said gently. "You don't have to go back with him." Ava didn't respond. He left the building. "We've locked the doors. Security is watching the entrance." Still, nothing. Then, a whisper, so soft, it barely registered. "Don't let him take me home." Mira froze. The words came without emotion, more like a commandment than a plea. Ava's head remained down, her hair like a curtain hiding her face. "Don't have to go anywhere with him, Ava. I promise you that." Ava swallowed, then lifted her eyes slightly. Just enough to meet Mira's. Something flickered their fear, yes. But also something older, worn, like she'd already survived 1,000 small deaths before arriving here. "He says I make things up," Ava whispered. He says if I talk, people will think I'm crazy. You're not crazy, Mira replied, her voice low and even. And I believe you. Ava looked away again. Her hand gripped the edge of the blanket, tugging it tighter. Around her, he said it would be our secret, she added, quieter this time. That no one would understand. Mira blinked slowly, keeping herself from showing too much. She wanted to scream. She wanted to throw her clipboard at the wall, but she couldn't. Not in front of this girl. She had to stay still, steady, safe. How long has it been happening? She asked gently. Ava shook her head. I don't know. Since before Christmas, I think. Mira noted that. Nearly 8 months ago. Did anyone ever see anything, say anything? He's careful, Ava replied. He says he loves me. That it's different with us. That I'm not like other girls. The way she said it flat, rehearsed made Mira's skin crawl. Does your mother live with you? She died when I was little. Anyone else at home? Grandparents? Neighbors? Ava shook her head again. Just him and me. Mira nodded slowly and stood. She crossed the room, pressing the call button. A nurse entered, eyes alert. Can you page the on-call CPS liaison? Mira said. Let them know we have an emergency protective case. Under 13, immediate risk, potential incest. The nurse's face went pale, but she nodded and left. Quickly, Ava watched her go, then looked back at Mira. He's going to be so mad. He won't come near you, Mira reassured her. We've called for help. People who are trained to protect you. Ava hesitated. Then he has a key to everything, at home, at school, even the mailbox. He says it's just so nothing bad happens. Mira felt the words settle deep in her stomach. Control, surveillance, grooming. The signs weren't just present, they were screaming. I need you to know something, Mira said. This isn't your fault, not any of it. And you did the right thing today. You were so brave. Ava said nothing, but her eyes glistened outside the room. The sheriff had arrived. Mira stepped into the hallway, pulling the officer aside. Tall woman in plainclothes with a quiet voice and a badge tucked at her hip. Henry Whitlow, Mira said. The father, patient, is 13. 5 months pregnant, the girl is terrified of him. He walked out of the clinic after we confronted him about stepping out of the room. Description, the officer asked, flipping open a small notebook. Salt and pepper hair, denim jacket, drove a green pickup. The officer radioed for a bolo. Myra listened to the static chatter echo back. Has CPS been contacted? The officer asked. Yes, they're on their way. Good, we'll need to arrange immediate separation. Do you have the ultrasound scan? Mira hesitated, then handed over the printout. The officer stared at it. Jesus. Back in the room, Ava finally looked around. She stood up slowly, walking to the window with cautious steps. Outside, the sky was turning a soft lavender. The street beyond was quiet. She rested her hand gently against her stomach. I didn't even know, she said. Mira, now standing behind her, asked softly, Did you ever feel anything before today? Any changes? I thought I was just sick. Or, broken. You're not broken, Ava. A long pause. Are you going to tell people what I said? Myra took a breath. Only the people who need to protect you. Ava nodded. He's smart. He always said people wouldn't believe me. I do. A tear slid down Ava's cheek. She wiped it fast. What happens now? You'll go somewhere safe tonight. CPS will make sure of it. The sheriff is looking for your father right now. Ava's hand curled into a fist against the window pane. He's going to try and find me. He won't. You don't know him, Ava said. He can get inside anything. Mira stepped closer, and we'll make sure he can't get inside this. We've already started. Another silence. Then Ava turned from the window, a strange strength flickering in her voice. Can I tell you something else? Anything. Ava looked Myra in the eyes. I think there's something wrong in our house, not just him, something worse. Ava sat cross-legged on the padded couch in the quiet room, knees drawn to her chest, fingers plucking nervously at the blanket hem. Dr. Mira sat across from her in the dim glow of a wall lamp, clipboard untouched on her lap. The storm outside had quieted into a grey hush. Inside, the air was thick with what hadn't been said yet. "I think there's something wrong in our house," Ava had said now. Myra leaned forward slightly. "What do you mean, Ava? Can you tell me what you're feeling?" Ava didn't answer right away. Her eyes scanned the room, not searching for danger, but calculating the safest places to tuck away a memory. "We live far out," she said softly. "Past the reservoir, no neighbors, just trees and dirt roads. If something happened, no one would hear." "How long have you lived there?" "Since I was 5. He built it himself. He likes to say no one else touched the walls but him." Myra shivered despite the warmth. "What about school? Do you have friends?" Ava shook her head. "He said homeschooling was safer. Too many bad influences in town." She paused. "Sometimes, he let me go with him to the grocery store, but only if I didn't talk to people." Myra didn't write anything down. She didn't want to break the rhythm. Ava's voice was barely above a whisper, but the truth in it cut like shattered glass. "Do you have a room of your own?" A nod. "I sleep in the front room. It's small, just a mattress and a shelf." "What about him?" Ava hesitated, her fingers stilled. "He sleeps near the back bedroom." Ava looked up sharply, eyes wide. Mira had touched something. "He told me never to go in there," Ava said. "Even when he's not home, he keeps it locked." "Have you ever seen what's inside?" Ava chewed her lip, then nodded slowly. "Once." Mira leaned in. "I picked the lock with a bobby pin, just to see. I was maybe 9. I thought maybe it was a surprise room. Something nice." Her voice cracked, but it wasn't. "What did you see?" "There were boxes, tapes, and clothes. Some weren't mine. One dress still had blood on it." Myra's hands tightened around the clipboard. "Did you tell anyone?" Ava gave a bitter laugh. "Tell who? He doesn't let me use the phone. And when I said I saw inside, he didn't even get mad. He just stared at me for a long time and said, 'Well, now you know.'" The room felt suddenly smaller. "What else was in there, Ava?" A long pause. "There was a bed, with a camera pointing at it." Down the hallway, the atmosphere in the waiting room had shifted. The nurse at the front desk kept one eye on her screen and another on Henry Whitlow. Seated in the far corner, legs crossed, jacket folded over one knee, he was talking to one of the younger nurses, smiling, making small jokes. His voice was warm, even playful. He looked like any other concerned father waiting for a diagnosis. "I remember when Ava first got her tonsils out," he was saying. "Wouldn't stop crying. Until I bought her a stuffed raccoon. She still has it." The nurse nodded politely, though her hands were tight on the clipboard. Another nurse approached from the back, whispered into the receptionist's ear. "He's not supposed to be here," she muttered. "We locked the doors. How did he get back in?" The receptionist blinked. "I thought security escorted him out earlier. He must have circled back, snuck in through the east wing during shift change." The receptionist picked up the phone to alert Mira, but when she looked up again, Henry was gone. The chair where he had sat was empty. The folded jacket lay untouched. "Where is he?" the nurse asked. A beat of silence, then chaos. In the recovery room, Mira's phone buzzed. One look at the caller ID and her stomach twisted. She answered. "Yes, he's inside," the receptionist said. "We don't know how. He's not in the lobby anymore." Mira stood instantly, eyes on the door. "Ava," she said quietly. "Come with me." Ava froze. "What's wrong? We're just moving you somewhere safer." "Is it him?" Myra didn't answer. She grabbed the girl's hand, cold and clammy, and led her quickly out of the room, through the back hallway toward the staff lounge. 2 nurses met them there, one locking the door behind them. "Stay here," Mira told them. "Do not open this door for anyone but me or the sheriff." Ava's lip trembled. "He said he can find me anywhere." Myra crouched down, meeting her eyes. "He's not going to hurt you, not again, not ever." The door rattled faintly behind them. Everyone froze, then silence. Sheriff Daniels entered. Through the main entrance 5 minutes later, hand on her holster, flanked by 2 deputies. The clinic staff had locked down every hallway they could, but the building wasn't built for lockdowns. Too many side doors, too many blind spots. He's here, the receptionist said. We just don't know where. One deputy swept the east corridor. Another went through the utility rooms. In the lounge. Ava sat motionless, her back against the supply closet. Myra stayed beside her, phone in hand, waiting for the all-clear. But something in Ava had shifted. She was quieter now. Not frozen, but listening. He's watching, she said. No one can see us in here. Yes, they can, Ava whispered. He used to hide cameras in the vent at home. Said he needed to keep me safe. Myra looked at the air vent above them. It wasn't paranoia, it was learned fear. She stood and moved a chair beneath it, unscrewing the grate. A small black device blinked faintly in the darkness. Ava closed her eyes. He told me if I ever ran, he'd show the videos to people. That they'd think I liked it. You didn't. We know that, but they'll see me smiling in some of them. That's what he says. That, I smiled, so it couldn't be bad. Myra sat beside her. Smiling to survive isn't the same as wanting something that's not consent, that's fear, and he knows it. Footsteps approached, a soft knock, double quotes, Dr. Mira. It's Daniels, we've got him. Mira opened the door. The sheriff's face was grim. He was trying to get to the back stairwell, had a burner phone in his sock, and a switchblade. Mira looked at Ava. It's over. Ava didn't smile. Not yet, but for the first time. She exhaled. The metallic clink of handcuffs echoed faintly in the clinic hallway as the deputies led Henry Whitlow out the east stairwell. His boots moved steadily over the linoleum, not dragging, not resisting, just walking. Calm, like a man finishing his shift at work. His jacket was zipped now, and the blank expression on his face betrayed nothing. Dr. Mira watched from the corner of the nurse's station, her arms folded tightly. Ava was still hidden in the supply room, now reinforced by a steel-reinforced internal lock. A deputy stood guard outside the door. Henry passed her. Their eyes met. For the briefest second, his lips curled into something between a smirk and a grimace. Is she okay? He asked, voice polite, nearly cheerful. No one answered him. The sheriff simply nodded at her team. Put him in the cruiser. Keep him separate until we process. As they stepped outside, the doors hissed shut behind them. Mira let her breath go. Earlier that hour, Henry had vanished. The nurse had turned her head for only a moment, just long enough to glance at a printer jam. When she looked back, he was gone. No sound, no door creak, no goodbye, just ... gone. Security scrambled, unsure which entrance he'd used. One guard claimed he saw a green jacket dart down the stairwell. Another said he never left at all. Myra knew better. Men like Henry didn't panic. They planned, they moved with purpose. She immediately led Ava from the recovery room through a maze of storage closets and break areas. The final stop, a narrow supply room tucked behind radiology, barely 6 feet wide, lined with shelves of gloves, cotton rolls, and diagnostic kits. Stay in here, Mira said, keeping her voice level. I'll be just outside, if anyone knocks. Don't open the door. Ava sat down on a box of sterile gowns, her arms wrapped around her stomach. He won't stop, she whispered. He will, Mira said. He already has. But, even as she said it, her pulse roared in her ears. Outside, a security camera caught Henry moving with eerie calm. He didn't run. He didn't look back. He walked across the gravel lot like he belonged there, head down, eyes shaded beneath. A cap he hadn't been wearing earlier. Where had he gotten it? He paused by his green pickup, popped the tailgate, and reached underneath. That's when a deputy, parked discreetly near the clinic's dumpster, stepped out. Henry Whitlow. The deputy asked. Henry turned slowly. His face was unreadable. Almost pleasant. Yes, hands where I can see them. Henry raised his arms. Not fast, not threatening. Just deliberate. I'm here to check on my daughter. She's very sick. Another officer approached from behind. Henry didn't flinch. You're being detained for questioning. the second officer said. Turn around, keep your hands up. As the cuffs snapped around his wrists, Henry asked again, is she okay? His tone made the hairs on the deputy's neck rise. Inside, Mira stood in the break room with the sheriff. We need to move Ava, Mira said. Now, somewhere she can't be found. I've already called Child Protective Services, Daniels replied. They're sending a liaison and a transport officer. But she's not leaving until we have an escort. Whitlow had a knife hidden in his boot. And an unregistered phone. Mira closed her eyes. He came here for her. Or to erase what she told us. They didn't say it out loud, but the implication was clear. If Henry hadn't been intercepted, there may have been a very different ending to the afternoon. In the supply room, Ava sat in the shadows. Listening, her ears picked up every shift outside footsteps, creaking pipes, someone clearing their throat, but nothing felt safe yet, not even silence. She pulled her sweatshirt tighter around her, then reached into her front pocket and removed a small object, a silver key. Dull and bent at the tip dot, Mira had seen her fiddle with it earlier. Now Ava stared at it. The key to the back bedroom, she'd stolen it 2 weeks ago, hidden it under a floorboard near her mattress. Part of her had always known this moment would come, when the truth would have to be louder than the fear. She slipped the key back into her pocket, and whispered to herself, don't let him take me home. 20 minutes later, a social worker arrived. Tamara Sloan, mid-40s, grey cardigan, quiet but firm demeanor. She carried a leather folder and a badge from Child Protective Services. I'm here for Ava Whitlow, she said. Myra stepped forward. She's scared. We need to move slowly. Tamara nodded. Let me talk to her. Inside the supply room, Ava looked up as the door opened. Tamara knelt beside her, not too close. Hi Ava, my name's Tamara. I'm with CPS. I'm going to help you now. Ava looked at her warily. We're going to take you somewhere safe tonight. You'll have your own room, a bed, food. No one can come in without your permission, not even me. Ava clutched the blanket. Can she come too? She asked, looking toward Mira. Tamara smiled gently. Dr. Mira will stay with you until we get you settled, okay? Ava nodded. Tamara held out a hand. Ava took it, in the parking lot. As Ava was led to the unmarked CPS van, Henry sat in the back of the cruiser. His hands were cuffed, his head tilted against the window. He watched her, not with anger, with a strange kind of affection, like she'd disappointed him, like he still thought she was his. Ava saw him too. Her feet faltered. Tamara squeezed her hand. Don't look. Mira whispered from the other side. But Ava did, and Henry smiled. A quiet, eerie smile that sent a chill through everyone who saw it. As the van pulled away, Mira watched until the red taillights disappeared around the corner. She's not safe yet, she murmured. Sheriff Daniels nodded grimly. He's just getting started. The group home sat at the end of a narrow county road, tucked behind a row of pine trees that seemed older than the house itself. It wasn't a large place, just 8 rooms, 2 counselors and a swing set in the back that creaked with every breeze. The air smelled of damp earth and lavender cleaning spray. And, somewhere inside, a TV murmured with old cartoons. No one was really watching. Ava stepped out of the CPS van without a word. Her hood was pulled low over her face, and the key in her pocket, the one from the back bedroom, dug into her thigh with every step. Mira gave her one last reassuring nod before the van drove off into the fading light, taking with it the only adult Ava had spoken to without trembling in days. Inside, a woman waited by the door with a clipboard in hand and soft eyes lined with years of quiet witnessing. I'm Erin, she said. I'll be one of your counselors here. No rules right now, just warmth and quiet. That sound okay? Ava looked past her, into the dim hallway, and gave a small nod. Erin didn't push further. She simply held the door open wider. That first night passed in silence. Ava refused dinner, barely touched the juice left by her bed. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She curled into the far corner of her twin mattress, blanket up to her nose, eyes locked on the ceiling, as if counting the tiles might keep her from remembering. By the second night, she accepted toast and wrote something on a folded napkin, then tore it up and flushed it down the bathroom toilet. Erin noticed. She didn't ask questions. She just brought Ava a new notebook and placed it quietly on the desk by her window. No pens, just the notebook. The kind with a lock and a thin ribbon attached. By the third night, the pages weren't blank anymore. They sat together on a bench outside after breakfast. A slow drizzle had coated the yard, making the grass slick and dark. Ava had her hood up, notebook pressed against her chest. Sometimes, Erin said, it helps to write things you don't know how to say. Ava didn't look at her. She just whispered, I already did. Erin paused. You wrote about what happened. Ava nodded slowly. Can I ask? Where is it? Some of it's still at home. Hidden, but some's in here, she said, patting the notebook. This is the clean one. Erin tilted her head. What do you mean by clean? No blood on the pages. Erin blinked. And the ones at home? They're coded, Ava whispered, so he couldn't read them if he found them. Later that afternoon, Erin sat in her office. The door cracked just enough to hear if Ava called out. The notebook sat on her lap, unlocked, the pages smooth and warm from the girl's hands. Ava had given it to her willingly. Just don't read the last page until I say. She honored that request. The rest of the entries were dated unevenly. Some pages jumped back weeks. Others repeated the same day twice. Erin quickly understood. Ava had been writing whenever she could. There were entries scribbled in what looked like candlelight. Others were clean, organized, almost too perfect. But they told a story in fragments, metaphors and whispers. Daddy tells stories at bedtime. I don't like them, but he says I have to smile so he can finish. He calls them our secret songs. Wear the special dress when it's time for games, the red one, the one that doesn't zip anymore. Sometimes I fly outside my body when it's happening. I land on the ceiling fan and spin until it's over. He says I'm the last one. That the others couldn't keep quiet like I can. Erin felt bile rise in her throat. These weren't stories. These were survival entries, trauma encoded. In a child's language, when the red light is on in the back room, I have to knock 3 times and wait. If I cry, he tells me I'm spoiling the movie. Erin closed the notebook slowly. This wasn't just abuse. This was ritualized, repeated, practiced at dinner. Ava poked at her mashed potatoes and avoided eye contact. Erin sat across from her with a tray she barely touched. I read the pages. You told me I could, Erin said gently. Ava paused, fork frozen halfway to her mouth. You did. I did. I believe every word. Ava blinked fast, then looked down. I thought maybe people would say it was just a dream. It wasn't. A long silence passed between them. Then Ava whispered, I think there were other girls before me, maybe even after. Do you remember names? Ava shook her head. He never let me meet them. Just showed pictures. Told me they weren't as special. That they left. Erin's voice remained steady. Did you ever hear them in the house, sometimes crying? Erin's hand tightened around her water glass. She knew they'd have to search that house, every room, every inch. Can I read the last page now? She asked. Ava hesitated. Then slowly she nodded. Later that night, Erin returned to her office, alone. She opened the notebook and flipped carefully to the last page. It was different. Not ink, but crayon, red, jagged. A drawing, a crude map, a layout of a house. Ava's house. Rooms labeled, my room, his room, kitchen, and then the red room. In it, a list. Camera ropes, lockstapes, blood dress, and under it, written in tiny, almost illegible letters, under the floorboard, left of the bed, box 2. Erin stared at it, heart pounding. This wasn't just a confession. It was a breadcrumb, a roadmap to evidence. The next morning, Erin handed the diary to Sheriff Daniels. We need a warrant, she said. There's more in that house. Maybe even more victims. The sheriff nodded grimly. I'll call the task force. And for the first time in days, Erin saw something flicker behind Ava's tired eyes as she watched from the hallway. It wasn't hope, not yet, but it was something. The sheriff's office was unusually still for a Tuesday morning, the kind of stillness that comes just before something shifts. Sheriff Daniels sat hunched at her desk, glasses low on her nose, eyes narrowed at the screen in front of her. The file she was reviewing had taken hours to unseal. Even then, what arrived was so heavily redacted it looked like a checkerboard. But one date stood untouched, and one name kept surfacing through the black lines like a ghost refusing to stay. Buried. Henry Whitlow, 1994. Alleged victim, Eleanor Whitlow, 12 years old. Status, sealed. Disposition, family separation. Private guardianship. No charges, no placement, no therapy, just silence. Daniels leaned back in her chair, exhaling through her teeth. This wasn't new. This wasn't even isolated. This was learned. Dr. Mira sat across from Erin in a quiet conference room at the group home, Ava's diary between them. I can't stop thinking about what she drew, Mira said. The layout, the box, that room. She wasn't making it up, Erin replied. We know that now. She never was, Mira snapped. But now, we're seeing how deep this goes. Erin nodded. I ran a background check through a friend in the district attorney's office. Henry was in the system before, but it was sealed. Sealed, 1994. Abuse allegations involving his half-sister. They were living with a guardian then, right after their mother died. Something happened in that house. Mira rubbed her temples. That's 30 years ago, and no one did anything. No arrest, just shuffled him to another relative and buried it. A long silence passed between them. Erin finally said, it wasn't just that he did something to Ava, it's that he was made this way. A cycle, a sickness. Which means there might be more like her. Erin nodded. And worse, there might be more right now. At the county archives, Daniels stood with a clerk, flipping through microfilm records from the early 90s. Most juvenile records weren't digitized then. But local newspapers, they loved whispers, especially small-town scandals. There it was. Dated September 12, 1994. Teen removed from home after allegations. Neighbors report. Disturbing sounds at night. The address listed was in the hills. North of where Henry lived now. Daniels highlighted it, cross-referenced the owner. A family trust, unclaimed since 2003, still in Henry's name. She turned to her deputy. We're not just searching the house Ava lived in. We need to get a team to that address, too. Back at the group home, Erin entered Ava's room slowly. The girl was sitting at her desk, drawing. Hey, Ava, Erin said gently. Can I come in? Ava nodded without turning. I wanted to talk to you about something, Erin said, kneeling beside her. About what happened before you were born. Ava stopped coloring. There was someone else, Erin said. Another little girl, a long time ago. Ava didn't move. I know, she whispered. Erin looked at her, startled. You do. Ava nodded. He told me once. When he thought I was asleep, what did he say? That she didn't listen, that she told. So he had to send her away. Erin's voice caught. Did he say her name? Ava hesitated. Nora, or something like that. Erin swallowed. Hard, Eleanor. Ava turned slowly. Is she alive? We don't know, Erin said, but we're trying to find out. Ava nodded, then reached under her bed and pulled out something wrapped in an old sock. A second notebook. Worn, torn, edges curled. This one has older stuff. Stuff I remembered from when I was little. Some things I dreamed about. Maybe they're real, maybe they're not. Erin took it carefully. Can I read it? Just not the last page, not yet. At the sheriff's office, Daniel stood in front of a whiteboard that now displayed 2 addresses. A timeline stretching back 30 years, and a long red string, connecting Henry to 5 names, all female, all young. Eleanor Whitlow, Ava Whitlow, unnamed foster girl 2006. Disappeared after 1 month. Caitlin J. found in-hospital records from 2011 with bruises. Never returned. Rachel mentioned in Ava's second notebook. What the hell have we been missing? Daniels muttered. One of her deputies entered. We've secured the second property. It's abandoned but locked. We're waiting on the warrant to go inside. Daniels grabbed her coat. I'm coming with. Meanwhile, Mira sat with Ava for a special psychological evaluation arranged through the district trauma unit. A therapist named Dr. Felix was present, taking careful notes as Ava spoke. When I was little, she said, he used to say I was born different, that I was made special just for him. Mira felt her stomach clench. Ava's voice remained steady. I didn't know what that meant at first, but by the time I was 8, I did. Dr. Felix asked gently, did he ever mention his sister to you again? No, but he said the house had memories, that the walls knew how to stay quiet. What else did the walls see? Ava hesitated, then said, everything. At the second property, the air was colder. The floorboards creaked like they remembered who'd walked them. Sheriff Daniels and her team entered slowly, flashlights sweeping across dust-covered furniture. The back room had a bed frame, chains attached to the base, a vent with frayed wires, and a moldy mattress that sagged like it had absorbed screams. In the corner. Box 2. Just like Ava drew it. Inside were photos dated labeled girls, faces blurred by age and trauma, and in the bottom, a videotape labeled red light. Daniels closed the lid. We need the DA, she said. Now? That evening, Erin returned to Ava's room with news she couldn't quite wrap her own head around. They found the other house, she said, and the box. Everything you said was there. Ava blinked. So, I wasn't dreaming. You weren't. A long pause, then Ava said, can you read the last page now? Erin opened the notebook. One line. He wasn't the first either. Erin looked up. Ava's voice was smaller now. He told me his uncle taught him. Back when he was little. And just like that, the roots stretched deeper. Not one monster, but a lineage of them. The photo appeared online. At 6:47 a.m., a grainy scan, black and white, a fetal silhouette in the center, cropped tightly, but clearly an ultrasound. It would have meant nothing to most, except the image carried a faint time stamp in the top corner, and beneath it, just visible, the initials, A.W. By 9 a.m. Local Facebook groups were flooded with speculation. By 10 o'clock. Someone posted a side-by-side of Henry Whitlow and his daughter Ava outside a gas station, taken 2 years ago, by noon. His name was trending in 3 counties. Dr. Myra sat at her desk, scrolling the threads with mounting horror. Her coffee sat untouched. Her phone buzzed non-stop. Texts from nurses, former patients, local reporters asking for statements. She ignored them all. This shouldn't have happened, she muttered. She clicked on the original leak. It was clearly taken from the clinic's internal system. A cell phone photo, screen glare, slight tilt, the angle unmistakable. Someone had accessed the imaging software and snapped a pic of Ava's scan. The fetus was unmistakable. Myra closed the screen, heart-pounding. Somewhere in the comments, people had started naming the girl. #ProtectAva, #who got her pregnant, #Henry Whitlow, is AM on STER. It was out now. The world was watching. At the group home, Erin noticed Ava hadn't eaten. She sat beside her on the couch, pretending to watch cartoons. They're talking about me, aren't they? Ava asked quietly, eyes locked on the screen. Erin hesitated. Yes. Some photo was leaked, but your name isn't in it. Ava didn't react. I knew it would happen, she said finally. He used to say one day they'd all find out. That the world would think I was dirty. Erin put a hand on her shoulder. No one thinks that. Erin stayed quiet. Ava needed space to speak. I saw my picture once, Ava continued. On the side of his laptop, when he thought I was asleep. It was from one of those ... nights. I think he saved them. Erin's jaw clenched. We're going back to the house today. The sheriff, a forensic team. We're going to search it again. Ava said nothing, then whispered, don't forget the basement. Erin turned. What basement? Ava looked her dead in the eyes. He told me it didn't exist. but sometimes I'd hear humming under the floor, like machines, or voices. Erin stood. I'll make sure they know. At the sheriff's office, the anonymous email arrived at 1:12 p.m. Subject: Henry Whitlow, WRNING from. Now you know at maildrop.cc message. You need to look into his basement. Trust me, I used to hear things when I lived next door. Sounds, girls. Crying. I never said anything. I should have. Please don't ignore this. I'm sorry I waited this long. Attached, a grainy satellite photo of the property, with a red circle drawn at the back of the house near a bulkhead hatch. Sheriff Daniels stood over the printer minutes later. Rereading it, get me the warrant team, she said. Now, bye. 3 p.m. The forensic van pulled up to the Whitlow residence. The same trees loomed overhead. The same long gravel path. But now, yellow crime scene tape flapped at the edge of the property, like a warning not everyone had heeded. Deputies moved. Fast.1 pried open the rotting hatch behind the house. Mold and mildew spilled out. The stairs leading down were slick with condensation. The walls were bare wood, unfinished. But deeper in, behind a false panel covered with plywood, they found it. A room. Small, no windows, no soundproofing, just a chair, bolted to the floor, a tripod-mounted camera, pointed directly at it. 12 labeled videotapes in a box nearby, a stained mattress rolled against the wall, and on the far corner shelf, children's clothing in various sizes. Folded with eerie precision, one deputy cursed and stepped out, vomiting in the grass. Daniels called Mira directly. We found it. Mira leaned back in her chair, breath gone. What exactly? A room, hidden in the basement. Camera still powered. Everything positioned like it had just been used. And tapes. Tapes. 12. But that's not all. There's also drawings. Crude sketches. Some of them are of Ava. Mira felt dizzy. Please tell me you're taking this federal already. Looped in the FBI, Daniels said. They'll be here by morning. Back at the group home, Aaron returned to Ava's room. They found the basement, she said. Just like you said, Ava didn't look up. She was sketching again, charcoal this time. She held it up to Aaron, a crude black box with a hole in it. Behind the hole, 2 eyes. That was the camera, she said. I never saw it, but I felt it. Aaron knelt. They also found videotapes. Ava finally looked up. Did he label them? Yes. Ava stared through her. There's more. Not all are at the house. Aaron nodded. They'll find them. We're not stopping now. By nightfall, the leak had sparked local protests. Residents held signs outside the clinic and the sheriff's office. Justice for Ava, investigate the system, how many others? And then, a second email. Same address. Same chilling brevity. Subject, you need to dig DEHR. Message, there's a locker in his garage. Combination is 21436. Do not open it without gloves. Attached, a blurry image of the locker, covered in stickers. One sticker read, Property of Dad. The forensic team returned to the house. The garage was detached, dark, almost forgotten. Inside the locker, a hard drive. Still warm, dozens of printed screenshots from forums on the dark web, notes labeled viewers. Each one linked to usernames, a folder titled AW. Project. The sheriff stood back, heart sinking. This isn't just local, she said. One of the techs looked up. He was selling it. What? These photos? These videos? He had an online ring, password protected, encrypted. Daniels felt a cold weight settle in her chest. It wasn't just Henry, he had clients. Mira met Aaron outside the group home later that night. Have you told her? Mira asked. No, she's already holding too much. Mira nodded. But she gave us everything we needed. She's a child, Aaron said bitterly. She shouldn't have had to give us anything. They sat in silence for a while. Somewhere inside, Ava slept, or tried to. Beneath her mattress was the red notebook. Inside it, unread, one final line. He said they paid more when we looked happy. The courtroom was too quiet for a Thursday morning, the kind of quiet where everyone was afraid to breathe. Afraid their sound might unravel the fragile threads holding the space together. The judge hadn't entered yet. The jury was seated. Henry Whitlow sat at the defense table, his hands folded, his posture unnervingly relaxed. He wore a grey sweater, hair-combed, clean-shaven. Ava didn't look at him as she entered. She walked in slowly, escorted by Erin, her counselor, who was permitted to sit in the front row. Mira sat beside her. Neither spoke. Ava didn't ask for comfort. She just clutched a small folded tissue in her hand, not to cry into but to squeeze. A week earlier, Henry had denied everything during his initial interview. I don't know what she told you, he'd said, arms crossed, but my daughter has had behavioral issues for years. Sheriff Daniels had leaned forward. We have a pregnancy confirmed, an ultrasound, and now DNA results. Henry didn't flinch. Kids do things at school. I wouldn't be surprised if some teenage boy, the DNA is a 99.998% paternal match, she interrupted. Henry's lips parted, then closed. He didn't say another word for the rest of the interview. Now, in the courtroom he sat silent again, but this time, not out of strategy. It was rage barely concealed beneath politeness. Ava could feel it from across the room. The district attorney, Karina Bell, rose first. We're here not only to prove a crime occurred, she said, addressing the jury, but to show you what it means when a child's body becomes a battlefield for someone else's control. She motioned to Ava. She was 13 when she came to the clinic. Pregnant, isolated, terrified. She didn't have to say much. Her body told us what happened. The evidence confirmed it. But she will speak today, because this man, she pointed to Henry, made her believe silence was her only option. Ava took the stand mid-morning. A small glass of water sat untouched beside her. Her knees didn't stop shaking, even as her hands stayed still in her lap. Karina approached gently. Hi, Ava. I know this is hard, but I just want you to tell us what happened. In your own words, when you're ready. Ava didn't speak for 8 full seconds. Then, it started, when I was 8. The room froze. My mum had just died. He said, I reminded him of her. That I was special. She swallowed. At first, it was just stories. Games. He'd come into my room after dark. Say it was our secret world. Karina waited. Ava continued. He said the world wouldn't understand. That I belonged to him now. Gasps from the gallery were stifled by the bailiff's stern glare. Did he ever hurt you? Karina asked softly. Ava looked down. There wasn't blood, but it hurt. A lot? Henry's lawyer objected, once leading the witness, but the judge overruled. Karina nodded and stepped back. No further questions. Then came the defense. Henry's lawyer, a stone-faced man named Rowe, stood slowly. He walked to the stand, his expression unreadable. Ava, he began, is it true that you've had issues at school? I was pulled out at 10. For what reason? My father said I was too sensitive. Did you ever tell a teacher about what happened at home? They wouldn't have believed me. Rowe raised an eyebrow. Or maybe, nothing happened. Ava didn't blink? Did your father ever threaten you? He pressed. Not with words, Ava replied, but with silence. If I didn't smile, he stopped talking to me. Sometimes for days. Is it possible you misinterpreted things? Voice grew smaller. Is it possible you're just like him? Gasps again. The judge banged her gavel. Enough. Then, unexpectedly, the defense rested. But Henry insisted on taking the stand. Rowe tried to dissuade him, quietly, urgently, but Henry stood. He straightened his sweater and walked confidently to the stand. When sworn in, he looked directly at the jury. My daughter is confused, he said evenly. She's been through trauma, yes, but not because of me. She's imagining things, or someone put these ideas in her head. Karina stood. Mr. Whitlow, did you rape your daughter? No. Did you impregnate her? I don't know how that test came back like that. Maybe it was tampered with. You're suggesting law enforcement fabricated a DNA result. I'm suggesting there are people who would do anything to take her from me. Why would anyone want that? Henry's voice rose, because she begged me not to leave her. The courtroom fell into stunned silence. Even his lawyer sank back in his chair. Ava's hands clenched the tissue tighter. The judge banged her gavel again. "Mr. Whitlow, that's enough." But Henry leaned forward in the witness box, eyes gleaming. "She didn't want me to stop. She said I was the only one who ever loved her." Security rose from the walls. Henry continued. "She said." The judge slammed her gavel. "Mr. Whitlow, you are now in contempt of court. Officers, remove him from the stand." 2 bailiffs grabbed his arms and dragged him from the box as his voice echoed through the chamber. "She's nothing without me. Nothing." In the hallway outside, Ava collapsed into Erin's arms. She didn't cry, but her shoulders trembled, and her grip left red marks in Erin's coat. Mira came moments later. "You were brave," she whispered. "You did something no one should ever have had to do," Ava finally whispered. "It's not over yet, is it?" "No," Erin said, "but it's closer." That night, the jury was dismissed. Deliberation would begin the next morning, but the court of public opinion had already passed its verdict. Outside, people gathered again, candles lit, signs raised, one of them reading, "No blood, still a crime." Another woman, older, maybe in her 50s, approached Erin quietly, voice trembling. "My sister was one of his students," she said. "In 2007, she used to have nightmares. Said someone made her take pictures." She handed Erin an envelope. Inside, a photo, black and white, a girl in a red dress. Not Ava. Someone else. At the group home, Ava finally sat on her bed and unfolded the final tissue in her palm. Inside it, a drawing she'd made when she was 9, a stick figure, a girl behind bars, another figure with a crown holding the key. She smiled faintly. She colored in the bars. Then, finally, the lock. Rain tapped against the courthouse windows like a ticking clock no one could silence. Ava sat in the second row of the courtroom, hands folded in her lap, a beige cardigan draped around her shoulders. The sleeves were too long, swallowing her hands, but she didn't push them up. The fabric felt like a shield, something she could disappear into if she needed. The jury had been out for just under 3 hours. Now they were filing back in. 12. Ordinary people. None of them looked at Henry as they took their seats. A few cast brief glances at Ava, not pitying, but solemn, respectful. Heavy. Henry sat at the defense table, jaw set, eyes forward, expression unreadable. Rowe, his attorney, said nothing. The judge entered. The room rose. "All parties present?" she asked. "Yes, Your Honor," the bailiff replied. "Bring in the jury." The foreman stood, a middle-aged woman with graying hair and tired eyes. "In the matter of the state versus Henry Whit," she began, voice steady, "on the charge of aggravated child sexual abuse, we find the defendant guilty." No one moved. "On the charge of incest, guilty. On the charge of unlawful impregnation of a minor, guilty. On the charge of possession and distribution of child pornography, guilty." Ava's breath caught in her throat. "On the charge of aggravated endangerment of a minor, guilty." Each word rang out like a bell. "Guilty, guilty, guilty." Henry didn't flinch. Even as the judge thanked the jury and dismissed them. Even as the gallery rustled with quiet gasps and tears. Even as the bailiff stepped forward, handcuffs glinting under the courtroom lights. Henry turned to Ava. For the first time since the trial began, she met his gaze. She didn't blink. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the storm had only moved. From the sky, into the media. Reporters flooded the courthouse steps. Microphones raised. Cameras flashing. Henry Whitlow convicted on all counts. Small-town reeling from years of hidden abuse. Local pediatrician credited with helping uncover decades of trauma. Brave testimony from 13-year-old survivor. Stuns courtroom. Dr. Myra stood beside Erin near the exit, shielding Ava from the press with their bodies. "She doesn't have to speak," Myra whispered. "She knows," Erin said. "But she wants to." Later that week, in a private courtroom session, the judge invited Ava to speak before the sentencing phase. It wasn't required. It wasn't expected. But Ava walked to the podium with steady feet. The room was nearly empty. Now, just the judge, her team, Mira, Aaron, and one court reporter typing softly behind a partition. I was told I could change my name. Ava began, voice small but unwavering. That I could start over somewhere new. Be someone else. She paused. I thought about it. A lot. Mira watched her from the gallery. Hands pressed together, Ava looked up at the judge. But I've had this name since I was born. It was mine before it was his. It's still mine. She glanced briefly at the seat where Henry had sat just days ago. I shouldn't have to erase myself. It's him who should be erased. Myra's eyes welled with tears. The judge gave a slow nod. You've been heard, Ava, and you've been seen. Ava chose not to speak to the press, but her words traveled anyway. Her sentence, it's him who should be erased, spread across social media. Some turned it into a rallying cry, others printed it on signs. People began sharing their own stories. Using the hashtag #stillmine.Aaron kept a folder of screenshots, hundreds of them, and left them in Ava's room as a silent reminder. She wasn't alone. The court granted Ava full relocation support, a new school, a new foster placement far from the county. Therapy for as long as she needed, a trauma service dog, already selected, waiting for her in her new town. But she didn't leave Rythe. Away. Not yet. There was one thing left. The courtroom had emptied completely. 1 week had passed since the verdict. Myra walked in alone that afternoon. The lights dim, the echo of her heels the only sound. She stood near the witness stand, the very one where Ava had told the truth, piece by piece, with the weight of the world pressing down on her shoulders. A voice behind her made her turn. She asked if you'd come. It was Aaron, holding an envelope. She wanted me to give this to you. Myra took it carefully. Inside, a charcoal sketch. Myra recognized it instantly. The courtroom, the bench, the judge, and at the witness stand, a small girl, hand raised, light beaming down on her from a high window at the bottom, a note written in Ava's hand. Thank you for believing me when no one else did. That evening, Ava stood on the front steps of the group home with a suitcase at her side. The dog, a golden retriever with soft eyes, sat patiently beside her. Leash wrapped around her wrist. You sure about this? Aaron asked. Ava nodded. I'm ready. Aaron smiled, swallowing back the emotion. You know you can write me anytime. I will. Ava paused, then added, You helped me save myself. I won't forget that. As the car pulled away, Mira watched from the sidewalk. Ava didn't wave, but she looked back once, just long enough to meet Mira's eyes through the rear window. It was enough. Some stories don't end cleanly. Some names never leave the papers. Some houses never get sold. Some nightmares take years to loosen their grip. But some girls, they don't disappear. They stay, they speak, they survive. Late spring sunlight filtered through the trees, dappled across the grass like soft fingerprints, in a small town miles away from where her story began. Ava sat on a faded park bench with her arms wrapped gently around a tiny bundle of pink and cotton. A bottle lay beside her on the bench, unused for now. The baby slept soundly, one hand balled near her cheek, her chest rising and falling in peaceful rhythm. Ava's eyes were tired, but steady. Her hair had grown longer, darker. The shadows beneath her eyes hadn't disappeared, but they no longer looked like bruises. They looked earned. A breeze stirred the leaves above her. The world, for once, was quiet. A familiar voice called. From a distance, Ava turned. Aaron walked toward her, slow and careful. Carrying a canvas bag and wearing a cautious smile, the kind someone wears when they're not sure if they'll be welcome. Ava didn't stand, but her lips twitched into something small and unmistakable. A smile. Hey, she said. Aaron sat beside her. Close, but not too close. The air between them was full of everything unsaid, and everything already understood. She's beautiful, Aaron said, leaning forward slightly. Thanks. How old? 6 weeks, yesterday. What's her name? Ava hesitated, brushing a curl from the infant's forehead. Lena, she whispered. It means light. Aaron blinked hard. It suits her. They sat for a while without speaking. A child laughed somewhere in the distance. A dog barked. Ava adjusted the blanket around Lena, instinctive and tender. Then quietly, "You want to hold her?" Erin turned to her, surprised. Ava nodded. "You're the first person I've asked." Erin reached out slowly, gently taking the baby into her arms. Lena stirred, made a small sound, and nestled deeper into the crook of her arm. "She's warm," Erin whispered. "She always runs a little hot. She's peaceful. She doesn't always cry when she wakes up," Ava said, a trace of pride in her voice. "Sometimes she just looks at me, like she's asking if I'm real." Erin smiled. "You are." Ava looked down at her hands. She'd stopped biting her nails. Her wrists bore faint pale lines, fading, not gone, but no longer red, no longer open. "I used to think I wouldn't survive her birth," Ava said quietly. "That maybe something in me would break, or disappear. And I didn't disappear." She looked up. "I'm still here." Erin passed Lena back, gently. Ava cradled her with practiced ease. "I used to hate her," Ava admitted, voice soft but unflinching. "Before she was born, when I'd feel her move, I'd wonder if I could ever look at her without seeing him." A shadow passed between them, but it didn't linger. "But when she was placed on my chest," Ava continued, "she didn't cry right away. She just stared at me, like she knew." A tear slid down Ava's cheek, and all I could think was, "We made it. You and me, we're still here." Erin didn't speak. She just let Ava have the silence. A silence filled with something gentler now. Not fear. Healing. Mira had written to Ava 3 times since the trial. Ava had only written back once, a short thank you handwritten folded twice with a sketch of the courtroom tucked inside. She hadn't needed to say more. Some things were sacred. Erin reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope. "I brought this from Myra," she said. "You didn't need to open it unless you wanted to." Ava took it but didn't look inside. Instead, she tucked it gently into her diaper bag. Then asked, "Do you remember when I used to draw boxes?" Erin smiled faintly. "You'd filled whole pages with them." "I think I was trying to draw my brain, like the places where I locked everything up, and now." Ava looked out across the park. "I don't draw boxes anymore." An older woman walked past with a stroller and smiled kindly at them. Erin waited until she was gone before asking, "How's the new placement?" "It's not perfect," Ava admitted, "but they're kind. They ask before they touch me. They leave the door open at night. The mum hums when she cooks. It's weird, but it helps. And Lena, they love her." Ava smiled again. "They bought her a nightlight shaped like a bear. It turns blue when it's bedtime." "She'll never know what you went through," Erin said gently. "No," Ava agreed. "But I'll never forget." They sat in silence again. "The kind that didn't hurt." Lena woke with a soft whimper. Ava pulled her close, whispering gently until the baby settled. Her fingers brushed the girl's cheek, soft and sure. "I'm scared of a lot of things still," Ava said. "Of waking up and remembering, of hearing his voice, of not being enough." She looked at Erin. "But I'm not broken." Erin's throat tightened. "No," she said. "You're not." A pause. "You never were." The sun dipped lower. The shadows stretched. It was time to go. Ava stood, slinging the diaper bag over her shoulder. She looked at Erin. "Will you visit again, if you'll have me?" Will they hugged gently, briefly, but with the weight of years behind it. Then Ava turned toward the path. Lena nestled against her chest, her eyes fluttering open for a moment. Ava kissed her forehead. "We're okay now," she whispered, as she walked down the gravel path. A gentle wind rustled through the trees. The camera, if there had been one, would have pulled back slowly, revealing the mother and child growing smaller with each step, but never lost in the frame. Ava's outline was steady, her scars hadn't vanished, but they didn't lead her anymore. They followed quietly, and she walked forward anyway.